Hey everybody, this is Angela, and you're listening to Five Picks and a Chick featuring El Gato. This is a show that gives you 5 NFL picks for people who love football and friendly wagering. Today we are joined by our special guest, Henry. Hey, thanks for being with us today, Henry.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm just ready for some NFL playoff and some college playoff.
Me too.
Too.
Well, El Gato, last week you and I both were 3-2. My season record so far is 53 wins, 37 losses, and I'm at 59%. You are at 50 wins, 39 losses, and 1 push, and you're at 56%.
Still in the green, still above that 50% mark. We're still performing just as good as some of the pundits on TV, maybe even better by a lot of percentage points. So yeah, we've done a good job on this thing.
I say we're doing better.
Yeah, take it.
All right, guys, my first pick is going to be Chargers -3 at Texans. Chargers are starting to peak at the right time, having won 3 in a row. Chargers lead the league in defense. The Texans actually started the season pretty hot, but have tailed off this second half of the season. And so has Stroud. I mean, I had a lot of hope in Stroud, and it just seems like he's just not playing as well as he did at the beginning. So I'm going to take the hotter team laying the points on the road, the Chargers. What are your thoughts on this game, Henry?
Yeah, like you said, the Chargers are playing well. They've won 3 in a row. They've scored 34 points or more in all 3 of those games. I really like their coach, Harbaugh. He's got that NFL playoff experience. He was a player. The Chargers are scoring a bunch of points, but Texans do have a really good secondary. Texans are missing 2 receivers, though. They're going to be without Diggs. They're going to be without Tank Dell, and I think that's just too much to overcome. As you touched on, Stroud's kind of got a little bit of a sophomore slump going on. And part of that you can probably attribute to those 2 missing receivers. But I think when it comes to the playoffs, you just have to take the best team in their current form, which is the Chargers.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this game, El Gato?
Yeah, you know what? I agree with both of you. To Henry's point, Texans are without Diggs and Dell. So who are going to be Stroud's go-to receivers when it's crunch time on that? When he's at 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. Dobbins coming back for the Chargers makes a difference. The O-line for the Chargers keeping Herbert clean in the pocket, and you see how he's excelled these last 4, 5, 6 games. And to your point, Angela, the Chargers defense has been stepping it up these latter half of the season and really doing well. They had that nice playoff run season run to make it into the playoffs. So, and with the Texans, slumping in, struggling last 3 or 4 games, not a good way to get into playoff mode. So I'm gonna take the Chargers -3. I'm thinking they win by a full touchdown. So Chargers -3.
Right. My second pick is going to be Baltimore -10 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be a tough divisional matchup. The Steelers are going in the wrong direction. Baltimore's doing better. Steelers are not doing as well. The Ravens have the #1 total offense, the #1 rushing offense, and the #1 run defense. So, with all that being said, I think they should cover. I know it's a lot of points, but I really believe that they will cover. The Steelers have lost 4 straight. This is going to be game number 5. What are your thoughts on this game, Henry?
No, you're right. You got the Steelers coming in on a 4-game losing streak, Baltimore coming in on a 4-game winning streak. Lamar has only been sacked 4 times in the last 4 games, so they're doing a really good job of protecting him. There is some concern with Flowers. Zay Flowers looks like he may not play, and he's a big part of their offense. With that being said, when Derrick Henry runs over 90 yards, the Ravens are undefeated. The total has moved from 45.5 to 43.5, so they're expecting a low-scoring game. And even though the Steelers' offense has really been sluggish lately, with a total of 43.5, and you're getting, is it 9.5 points for the Steelers?
It's 10.
Yeah, 9.5, 10. It's just that's a lot of points to get in a low-scoring game. So I'll take the sluggish Steelers in the 10 points.
What are your thoughts on this game, El Gato?
I went back and forth a bunch on this game. You know how I hate those double digit or even close to double digit spreads, but I don't like the way the Steelers have been playing these last 3 or 4 games. Offensively, they just can't get anything going. Defensively, of course, they have that strong defensive line, adequate secondary. I mean, Steelers are always going to play tough defense, but if the Steelers can't play complementary football where the offense is pulling their weight, that makes it a tough go, especially in the playoffs on the road against the Ravens. To your point, Angela, with the Ravens kind of clicking on all phases of the game offensively. Jackson being able to hit his passes, an occasional run, his running backs, Henry, to Henry's point, excuse me, uh, getting those tough yards, 3, 4, 5 yards, converting third downs, excellent wide receivers, excellent third back receiver, and strong defense. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance on the Ravens and covering that 9.5 or 10. I think the 10 is posted. It's going to be a cold day. Should have at least the weather forecast says freezing rain in the morning, which may keep the field iced for the afternoon or evening game, whatever that is. So it's going to be tough sledding, but I'm going to take the more explosive offense on this one, the better running game. I'll take the Ravens -10.
All right. Do you have a third pick for us, Henry?
I do. I'm going to go to the game in Philly. You got the Packers going to Philly. Eagles have won 12 out of 14, playing really good ball. With that being said, though, they do have the second easiest schedule in the league. Pack have lost 3 out of 5. Packers played their starters last week. They will be out. Their receiver Watson and Love is going to be a little bit banged up. You got an Eagles offense that's coming in playing really well. Barkley's having a great season. Eagles have held, eight of their last 9 opponents under 21 points. It just seems too easy for the Eagles to win by 7, which would cover the spread of 4.5. I'll take the Eagles.
What are your thoughts on this game, El Gato?
Yeah, I like the Eagles on this one too. At home, -4, 4.5 to Henry's point. I think this is about a touchdown game, maybe a little bit more. The Packers kind of limping in, just like the Texans are offensively. They're kind of struggling now. They're without one of their go-to receivers. I don't know. Did he really need to play that last game? I mean, what was the point, right? They were in the playoffs. It's a matter of where they were going, but injuries happen. And that's the way it is. Both defenses kind of comparable to each other, strong defenses. But on this case, with Hurts, I'm thinking he's out of the concussion protocol. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Is he?
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to play. Barkley, of course, MVP candidate, if not the MVP of the league. At home, I'm going to take the Eagles. I think they're in for a strong playoff run here. Eagles -4.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the other side on this one. And I'm not saying Green Bay's going to win, but I think it's going to be a very close game, like a field goal kind of game. So that's why I'm going to go the other way on this one. On paper, this is a pretty even matchup.
Yeah.
Both teams can run the ball. Both can play great defense. What concerns me with the Eagles is they have the 29th passing offense rank in the league. And they rely, I think, too much on the run game, too much on Barkley. This is going to be a different kind of game. It's the playoffs. You either win or you lose and go home.
Yeah, that's true.
So Packers are going to keep the game close. Eagles win by field goal.
They play Saturday or Sunday, Angela?
The Eagles are playing Sunday.
Sunday.
They're the second game.
Okay, that's going to be a good break because the Saturday weather forecast is for snow or sleet all
Yeah.
day Saturday in Philadelphia. So that run game, to your point, is going to be very important. Both teams can have a strong run game, so it's going to be a close game. Like you say, Packers may not win, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, and on another note, I think LaFleur showed people why you sit out your best players when the game doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that guy just got injured for nothing.
Well, do you have a fourth and fifth pick for us, El Gato?
Yeah, I have a couple of picks. I've got the Rams at home against the Vikings. The Rams are plus 1.5. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Rams on this one. The Vikings kind of melted against the Lions the other night, in a playoff atmosphere, playing for the number one seed. Granted, they were playing at the Lions. Tough matchup there with the crowd and, a tough game. But you know what? For me, they didn't even show up. I don't know what y'all's opinion is on this one. And Darnell kind of and Jefferson, they weren't, they've been playing all year together and they couldn't hook up on passes on 8-yard third down conversions on their slants. I mean, it seemed like they couldn't do anything. Neither could the Vikings defense. They had no answer for that slant pass that the Lions went to, or that cross route slant passes that the Lions went to time and time and time again. I remember texting a friend that evening and was saying the Lions are going to keep running that same route until the Vikings can stop it. And you know what? The Lions kept running that same route, and the Vikings couldn't stop it. We saw the result was a big route of the Vikings. Both teams met earlier this year with the Rams winning. Both defenses are kind of similar, kind of comparable. The Vikings maybe slightly better, but in this case, I'm going to take the better quarterback on this one to execute better. I think Stafford will do that better than Darnell. So Rams, a home underdog, plus 1.5. I'll go with the Rams.
What are your thoughts on this game, Henry?
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Both teams have won 4 out of their last 5. Vikings have a kind of a high octane offense. Their defense doesn't put up a whole lot of resistance. Rams offense, even though they have some really good receivers, they got a good running back, haven't been putting up a ton of points. But I think the Vikings defense might be the right recipe to fix that. I don't know about the side, but I'd lean toward the over. I see the total being like 47 and a half. I think this is going to be like a 27-24 type game. I'll just lean toward the over.
Yeah, I am actually going to go with the Vikings on this one. I know last week we talked about the Vikings Lions games, and I said that this game might be too much for Darnold. So that's why I went with the Lions. But I think they kind of right that this week. I'm going to go with the Vikings minus 1.5. This is a rematch from earlier in the year when the Rams beat them. Vikings, I think, are the better defensive team and will avenge the loss from earlier in the year. I think Brian Flores' defense is going to come out and they're going to play and they're going to get to Stafford, and that's going to make all the difference in this game. So I am going with the Vikings minus 1.5. You have another pick for us, El Gato?
Yeah, Angela, I've got one more pick, and that's Tampa against Washington. Tampa -3 at home. Washington is a much improved team from a year ago. We got that outstanding quarterback, Jaden Daniels, who maybe rookie of the year, I'm thinking. What do y'all think?
Yeah,
I think so. He's had a great year.
yeah,
Great year, right?
I agree.
But Tampa has Baker Mayfield. Tampa has top 4 defense in the red zone. They have number 1 defense on third down efficiency. So, and with the Washington Commanders struggling on in their run game, especially on third down, and the Bucks having the strength in that category, and Tampa putting up a bunch of points here recently, I'm gonna take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the difference will be Baker Mayfield in checking his passes down, making those third down conversions, extending drives. I think the Washington will have a hard time getting their run game going. So that I think that will be the difference for Tampa to cover that -3. Looking for about a 4-point, maybe a touchdown win for Tampa on this one. What do you guys think?
No, I'm going to agree with you. I think Bucks have won 6 out of 7. Commanders have won the last 5. You have 2 high-scoring offenses. Baker's having a great year. He's got 41 passing touchdowns. You got a Washington defense that gives up points to good teams. Washington's given up 4+ sacks last 3 out of the 4 games. Buccaneers are top 10 in getting sacks. So I think you got to go one way, and they call him Baker Moneymaker for a reason.
Yep. Love it.
That
Love
makes
it.
Yeah, I do too because Baker is on fire right now. So I'm taking Tampa -3. Even though I love Jaden Daniels, I really do, and I
Yeah.
love Quinn as a head coach, but I think this game is as even as it gets. So I'm going to go with the more experienced quarterback in Mayfield at home. So give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -3. Also, I think the Washington defense is suspect.
Let me make one more point, if I may, Angela and
You
Henry.
sure may.
On that red zone defense comment that I mentioned earlier, I think that'll be the difference in the game. Whether Washington can score a touchdown, or if the Buccaneers obviously can hold them to a field goal. I think that will be the difference there, where the Buccaneers and possibly a high scoring game puts up touchdowns, and on the other side, their defense allows only Washington to get to convert field goals instead of touchdowns. So I think that'll be the difference.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, guys, we've made it to that point in the podcast. What do you guys want to talk about to end this podcast?
Henry, you take the mic.
Man, I think you have to talk about you got the Final Four in college football. You have to
I
talk about
agree.
that. Starts. You got one game Thursday night. You got one game Friday night. I'm curious what you guys think.
The first game is going to be Thursday night. Going to be Notre Dame and Penn State. I'm hoping for a Penn State win. That's with heart. But man, Notre Dame looked really good against Georgia. I think that they've got an overall well-rounded team, but I think the same about Penn State too. So I think this is going to be a really good matchup, but I hope Penn State comes ahead.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be on paper, both teams are comparable. I mean, they both have good offensive lines, good defensive lines. It's going to be the team, I think, that can establish the run more and that can score in the red zone. Touchdowns are going to be important, obviously, instead of settling for field goals. Penn State has those couple of dynamic running backs, but Notre Dame has that nice, tough front seven, including those 4 defensive linemen and those linebackers, and they can also cover those cornerbacks. To your point, Angela, they covered up those Georgia receivers, albeit Georgia didn't have their number 1 quarterback out there, but still to be able to hold those Georgia wide receivers to not so many explosive plays and really dominate that game was impressive. I'm leaning towards Notre Dame on this one, just on the money line, not on the spread, just to win this game.
Yeah, I think that Georgia backup quarterback, I think the game was just too much for him.
Yeah, kind of
It was,
overwhelmed, right?
yeah, it was too big of a game for him. He's a great quarterback. He's going to do well, but I
Yeah.
think just the game overall was too
Yeah.
much for him. Also, want to say I think the Notre Dame head coach is very good looking, so hopefully they have him on camera a lot.
I
A
won't.
lot.
I don't have a comment on that. Looks
I
are
don't know about
overrated.
you. I don't know about
Overrated.
you. I don't know, I don't know about you, Elgata, but I thought the same thing. He's a smoking, good-looking guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Uh, Moving right
Oh,
along.
move on.
Actually, he's a damn good coach. Young guy. I mean, you think about this, guys. They hired Kelly, to get him over the top several years ago, 5-6 years ago. And what Freeman was an assistant DC or OC. Y'all can correct me on this. And Notre Dame hires from within. I think the players also kind of mentioned, hey, that we want Freeman. This is the guy. And look what he's done.
Yeah.
He did in 2 years what Kelly couldn't do in 6 years. So not only to Angela's point on how the Notre Dame team has been performing, I think they found their guy. They found their man for the long term.
And I think it's a lot to do with the players have respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, once the players want to play for a coach, anything is possible, right?
They're going to give it their all.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this game, Henry?
No, I lean Penn State, Notre Dame. They had that late turnover in the first half against Georgia, turned it to a touchdown. They had the kickoff. They returned for a touchdown, start the second half, and that kind of sealed the deal for Georgia.
Yeah.
Those are kind of 2 fluke deals. I think Penn State's just going to be too much for them. I don't think that happens 2 weeks in a row.
Hey, so what about the second game on Friday? It's also at 6:30. What do you guys think about that game?
My Longhorns. They barely escaped Arizona, but when you're in the playoffs, it's this win and advance, right? That's all it is. But I don't know. Like I told you last week, Angelo, on the podcast, I went into some self-induced therapy after that game because that game had me all screwed up. I mean, I went highs and lows. I don't know. My heart rate went up to about 170 probably, and I wasn't even working out. But it was that kind of game. It was good for if you were just a fan of college football and you weren't, tied to any particular team. It was an exciting game to watch. But if you had an allegiance to any particular team, that game just drove you crazy. Quinn converting on that fourth and 13. Not only did they make the first down, they made the touchdown, and then the very next possession in overtime, one play, touchdown to win it. I think Arizona still didn't know what the hell was going on after giving up that fourth and 13 for a touchdown. Moving on from that game to the next game against Ohio State, where we saw what Ohio State did to Oregon, they
Demolished.
completely demolished them, flipped them, destroyed them. I don't think Oregon knew what hit them, and they were only in the first quarter. They were up by 31.
Yeah.
31-0. Are you kidding me? But Ohio State, it seemed like after that Michigan loss, they just said, the hell with trying to play conservative. Let's just ball out, and that's what they've been doing these last couple of games. They destroyed a good Tennessee team, and now they completely demolished the number one ranked Oregon team in their same conference, the Big Ten. And now Texas needs to meet up against that beast in Ohio. It's going to be a tough matchup. In this game, it always comes down, for me, my opinion, is can the offensive line of one team block the defensive line and linebackers of the opposing team. Whatever team can do that best will win this game. Texas has struggled against, very aggressive, very elite defensive players. Georgia, for example, they lost 2 games to them this year. Ohio State has some comparable players. They have some alpha dogs. They also have a very good secondary. It's going to be a tough matchup. Hey, I haven't even spoken about the wide receivers for Ohio State. It's going to be a tough game. If Texas can pull out this win, I'll be so happy. I won't know what to do with myself.
What are your thoughts, Henry?
Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't want to step in front of the Ohio State train, man. Boy, those guys got to figure it out finally. I think we've been wondering all year long what's going on with those guys. You're just loaded
Yeah.
at running backs, receivers.
Yeah.
I think they got it figured out. So I think it's theirs.
They
Yeah.
spent so much in NIL money to get those players, as a lot of the top programs did. And for Ohio State on this last 2 playoff run, it seems like that investment is paying off.
I'm hoping Texas wins, but Ohio State looks so good last week. So I think that it's going to be a tough game for Texas. It's so weird, Texas. They always start off really strong, and then for some reason, it's almost like they let off the gas,
Yeah.
and then they have to struggle to win the game.
Like that,
So
I know. You're
yeah,
right. Like that
yeah.
third quarter against Arizona, they just disappeared.
Yeah, they should have had that game won long time before it even got to fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But so I think it's going to be a battle.
Let's see what happens. I hope Texas shows up, and
I hope so too. Any other final thoughts?
That's it.
no. NFL playoffs finally here. It seems like it was just a blink of an eye when we were in week 1, or maybe the last game of preseason. Kind of bittersweet that
It
the
is.
season is winding down, but this is a new season for the NFL teams that are in the playoffs. It's like season 2. Now it's win or go home, and you put together a string of 3 or 4 wins, and you're Super Bowl champs.
This is it.
This is it.
Well, if you've made it to this point in our podcast, we just want to thank you. Hit the subscribe and like button on our YouTube channel at 5 Picks and a Chick. You can also find us wherever you get your favorite podcast. Hey, thank you to Henry for joining us today.
Thanks, Henry.
Hey, good times.
Make sure to join us next week. As always, thank you to El Gato for being part of 5 Picks and a Chick. 1, 2, 3. Bet. And that's a wrap.